We are going to talk about scale today, and a scale is like right there that I'm showing you. It is going to allow you to see the distance between two areas. Scales are going to have miles or kilometers on it, but we are going to use miles. This scale goes from 0 to 500 miles. Now, not all scales are going to go to 500 miles. So, like if I go to R8, this scale goes 0 to 400 miles down here in the corner, whereas the scale at the top of R8 goes from 0 to 1,000 miles. Now, we're going to talk about how to use scale in order to find the distance between two cities. We also are going to go the way the bird flies, and we're not going to go on roads today. We're just going to cut straight across. So we are going to do some examples of scale, and to do that we are going to be looking at page R4 and R5 in our Social Studies Geography book. And you're going to need a ruler, and this ruler we're going to use is going to be the side that has inches. And you are going to be using the side of the ruler and placing it in the middle of a dot, because the dot or the star is where the city is located. So for instance, if I am going to look at the distance between Vicksburg and another city, I'm going to place my edge of my ruler in the middle of that dot. Okay? Do be careful because rulers do drift whenever you move them. If I were doing Jackson, because it's a capital, I would go and take the edge of my ruler and put it in the middle of the star, because that is the heart of the city. All right, let's go over how to use scale. So we are either going to round to the nearest whole inch, so like 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, or we're going to the nearest half inch, like 1.5 inches, 2.5 inches. And first thing you do to do scale is you've got to measure the scale. Keep in mind, not all scales are the same length. So one scale on one map might be 1 inch long, other scales might be 5 inches long. All right, so it looks like this scale is right around 1 inch long. And if you look at the scale, 1 inch will equal 200 miles. We're going to use miles and not kilometers. So go over to a piece of paper here. And we have that our scale is 1 inch. And it is going to equal 200 miles. On other maps, 1 inch might equal 1,000 miles. On other maps, 1 inch might equal 600 miles. So you have to pay attention. Okay, after we have our scale measured, then we're going to go to our cities that we're interested in, because scale is going to help us, the scale is going to help us find the distance between two places. I think we're going to come down here and we're going to look at Macon, Georgia. Remember, it's where the dot is, not where the M or the O is. And then we're also going to look at Shreveport. Okay. There's Louisiana. So I'm going to be on the inches side of my ruler, and I'm going to put my ruler in the middle of that dot for Shreveport, and I am going to very carefully adjust it so my other ruler, part of my ruler, is going to the dot for Macon. And we're just going to have to kind of estimate here. That's pretty much 3 inches, okay? It's not perfect, it's close. So now we're going to have that from Shreveport to Macon, there's 3 inches, okay? Now that doesn't mean there's 3 inches, that you don't have to travel 3 inches to get to Shreveport if you're going from Macon to Shreveport. And that just means there's 3 inches in between them. So now we have to figure out how many miles that equals. So if we know every inch is 200 miles, then we need to figure out how many miles is in 3 inches. So I'm just going to work this out. The way I would do it, because I'm going to give an example here for a student who maybe struggles at math, is 3 inches. So 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. IN equals inches, in case you didn't know. And then every inch is 200 miles. MI equals miles. And then I'm going to add it together. And that makes 600 miles. You also could have multiplied. So instead you could have went 200 miles. And you could have multiplied that by your 3 inches. And that would have got your 600 miles. Okay, so either way it comes up with 600 miles. There are 600 miles approximately between Shreveport and Macon. We are going to do another example. We're going to look here at Idaho, and we're going to see the distance between Boise and Sun Valley. It's the same scale, so we still know that our scale is going to equal 200 miles. So, again, it is about an inch. So since our scale is about 1 inch long, we will write 1 inch on our paper. And according to our scale, 1 inch equals 200 miles. Okay. Now we want to know the distance between Boise and Sun Valley, Idaho. So put your ruler on the inches side and put that ruler corner in the middle of the star and adjust it so it goes into the middle of Sun Valley. And we're going to round to the nearest inch or ½ inch. In this case, we are closest to that ½ inch. So we only have ½ an inch approximately between Boise and Sun Valley. So ½ inch is what we have here. So now we have to figure out how many miles that is between those two cities. We don't have a full inch, we have half. So what you got to do is you've got to divide. So we want to divide 1 inch in half, so 200 miles. If I divide that in half, we make 100 miles. So now we know that for every ½ inch, you will have to travel 100 miles for this particular map. So 100 miles is your answer. There are 100 miles between Boise, Idaho and Sun Valley, Idaho. Okay, now we're going to be looking at R20 at the Pacific political map. And I'm going to have us look at the distance between Darwin and Sydney, Australia. First, though, we need to come over here to this scale. And if we take our ruler on the inches side and we measure our scale, it's approximately 1 inch. It's a little less, but that's okay for what we're doing today. 1 inch is fine. So on our piece of notebook paper, we have 1 inch. And according to this scale, that is 1,000 miles, because we're going to use miles. So that's going to equal 1,000 miles. Okay? Now we take our ruler, and we are on the inches side, and we're going to put that in the middle of Darwin. All right, in the middle of its dot. And we're going to go to the middle of the dot for Sydney. And that's about 2 inches. So, about 2 inches in between. Okay, I have that written down. So, we have 1 inch equals 1,000 miles. That's what our scale is. But there are actually 2 inches in between Darwin and Sydney, Australia. So what you'll need to do is you can just take, you have 2 inches, and that's going to equal 1,000 miles each time. You add that together, and that makes 2,000 miles. Or you can multiply if you would rather. So 1,000 miles times the 2 inches, and that gets you 2,000 miles. So there are 2,000 miles between Darwin, Australia and Sydney, Australia.